The village of Umunze was always alive in December. The dry, dusty air carried the scents of roasted yams and palm wine. As people prepared for the grand festival of the year, the Uzoije festival, it was a time of joyous celebration, a moment for families to gather, reflect and honor their lineage. For Chief Ezeobi's household, however, the festival air was heavy with tension. Chief Ezeobi, a man of great influence, had lost his first wife many years ago. His second wife, Madam Nneka, was a stark contrast to the late Ngozi, whose kind and nurturing spirit had endeared her to all. Madam Nneka was known for her outward charm, but her true nature was venomous. She was a very young woman when she married Chief Ezeobi, with the intention that he was super rich and he would spoil her. Chief Ezeobi's first son, Anayo, was 24 years old when his mother died. Anayo pleaded with his father, Chief Ezeobi, to marry an advanced woman since he doesn't need to bear more children. But Chief Ezeobi wanted a fresh and young blood, and he went ahead and married Nneka. Madam Nneka harbored deep resentment towards Anayo and even extended her hatred to his children, especially Ogonna, the first daughter of the family, because people said that Ogonna looks more like Chief Ezeobi's late wife. Ogonna was a radiant 15-year-old, full of life and innocence. Her laughter was like music, a sound that warmed hearts. But to Madam Nneka, it was unbearable. Ogonna had been sent by her parents to spend the holidays with her grandfather. Her presence brought joy to the old man, but it also stirred envy in Madam Nneka. And to make matters worse, Madam Nneka's first daughter, Ifunanya, was so fond of Ogonna, and even though Madam Nneka had warned her not to associate with Ogonna, Ifunanya wondered why. Why must she always laugh like that? Madam Nneka muttered one evening as she watched Ogonna play in the courtyard with the other children. Her envy infested with hatred, and she began plotting to get rid of Ogonna once and for all. On the eve of the Uzoije festival, Madam Nneka began her preparation. She had overheard Ogonna tell her grandfather that she loved rice and stew. Madam Nneka, fringing generosity, announced she would prepare a special meal for everyone. As she cooked, Madam Nneka added a secret ingredient, a poison. She stirred the pot with malicious intent. Her heart as cold as the harmattan wind outside. She will eat, and by morning she will be no more, she thought with grim satisfaction. When the food was ready, Madam Nneka carefully brought out Ogonna's portion and made sure to add a large quantity of the poison. She made sure that nobody touched her food. She called for Ogonna, her voice unusually sweet, but fate had other plans. While Madam Nneka was distracted by the women who came to call her to join them to dance at the Uzoije festival, her first daughter, Ifunanya, walked into the kitchen. Ifunanya had just returned from the city, and she was famished after her journey, and didn't bother asking for permission. She took the plate of rice her mother served for Ogonna. Ogonna came to the kitchen and saw Ifunanya enjoying the delicious rice and stew, and asked Ifunanya if she took permission from her mother before eating the food. Ifunanya brushed it off and said to Ogonna, "If you like before me, won't you bring spoon and join me?" Ogonna picked up a spoon and joined Ifunanya. She only took a spoonful of rice when her grandfather called her to get him a cup of drinking water. She immediately dropped the spoon and ran to answer Chief Ezeobi. Ifunanya continued to eat, and when her mother, Madam Nneka, passed, she said with rice full in her mouth, "Mama, this stew is delicious," Ifunanya said, her mouth full as Madam Nneka walked in. Madam Nneka froze. Her heart pounced as she realized what was happening. "Who told you to eat that food?" she screamed, her voice laced with panic. Madam Nneka froze. Her heart pounded as she realized what was happening. "Who told you to eat that food?" she screamed, her voice laced with panic. "Mama, what's the problem? It's just food," Ifunanya replied nonchalantly. Continue to eat. Madam Nneka stood there, paralyzed, as she quickly collected the food from her and sent her away to go and deliver some items to Mama John Bosco. Madam Nneka wept and prayed to God to save her daughter. At midnight, Ifunanya began to act strangely. Her eyes rolled back and she clutched her head. "Mama, my head is spinning, oh," she screamed. Madam Nneka rushed to her, but it was too late. Ifunanya started convulsing, her screams turning into incoherent babble. By now, the commotion had drawn the attention of the entire household and nearby neighbors. Ifunanya, completely out of control, ran outside, tearing at her clothes and shouting nonsense. "What is going on here?" Chief Ezeobi demanded as he emerged from his room. "Mama, what happened to Ifunanya? Eke boy," the first son asked, his voice shaking. Madam Nneka stammered, unable to form a coherent explanation. Ogonna, who had been sleeping, woke up suddenly and ran to her grandfather, frightened by the chaos. The villagers gathered quickly, their murmurs growing louder. "This is not normal," said one elder. "Something evil is at work here." Ifunanya was rushed to a herbalist, but despite his efforts, her sanity never returned. The herbalist informed them that the only thing that can restore her sanity is the truth. Under the stern gaze of Chief Ezeobi and the accusing eyes of the villagers, Madam Nneka finally broke down. "It wasn't meant for her," she said. "It was meant for that child." She pointed at Ogonna, whose innocent eyes widened in confusion. The crowd gasped in disbelief. Chief Ezeobi's face darkened with anger. "You tried to poison my granddaughter?" he growled. "After all I have done for you, Nneka." "I was tired of her," Madam Nneka shouted, her voice cracking. "She was taking all the attention and I couldn't bear it anymore." The elders, horrified by Nneka's confession, declared that the gods had delivered sweet justice. "Your wickedness has brought ruin upon your own child," one of them said. "The gods have spoken." Ifunanya was taken to different herbalists, but despite their best efforts, her sanity never returned. She wandered the village, a living reminder of her mother's evil. Madam Nneka was banished that same night, her cries echoing through the village as she was escorted away. Chief Ezeobi, though heartbroken by the events, took solace in the fact that Ogonna was safe. Ogonna's father, aware of the danger she had narrowly escaped, immediately took her away from the village and vowed never to return to the village with his family again. Ogonna continued to bring joy to those around her. Her parents were now more protective of her than ever. For years to come, the story of the December sacrifice was told during the festival, a cautionary tale of envy, wickedness, and divine justice. Madam Nneka's name became a byword for evil, while Ogonna's laughter continued to fill Umunze with hope and happiness. And so December, which began with treachery, ended with redemption and a reminder that no evil goes unpunished.